Hong Kong in the 19th century was an in-between place. It stood between the British world and the Qing Empire. In this video, we show how Chinese elites, merchants, compradors, and community leaders helped build this city. They worked through businesses, charity, and education. We focus on 4 places in Central and Sheung Wan. They are close together and they tell one connected story. We chose the topic of Chinese elites in the 19th century because it helps us understand Hong Kong as an in-between city. These elites worked with the British colonial system, and they also served local Chinese communities. They stood in the middle. Our method is simple. We take a short field trip in Central and Sheung Wan. We film the places with our phones. We use museum panels, archives, and books to check our facts. Our main resources are the Hong Kong Museum of History, the Hong Kong Memory website for old photos, and 2 historians, John M. Carroll, who writes about Chinese elites as intermediaries, and Elizabeth Sin, who studies charity at Tung Wah Hospital. We will show short source credits at the end. This is the heart of colonial businesses. In the late 19th century, British banks like HSBC and trading houses called Hongs worked here every day, although in the course of Hong Kong economic development, many Hongs had disappeared. They could not succeed alone, they depended on the Chinese compradors. The dominance of Chinese influence is even reflected in the Chinese name of Queen's Road, Wong Hao Road, which means Queen's Road, and it was named by Chinese elite. A comprador was a Chinese manager and fixer. He connected British firms with Chinese merchants, workers, and customers. He spoke several languages and he understood local culture and colonial rules. He could solve problems and make deals. One famous figure at the end of the century was Robert Ho Tung. He worked as a comprador for Jardine Matheson and became very rich and respected. Apart from him, his brothers Ho Fook and Ho Kom Tong were also successful compradors. These gas lamps on Duddle Street were installed in the 1880s. They remind us of urban modernity at that time. Behind the modern streets, the system needed Chinese go-betweeners. Scholar John M. Carroll explains that elites were intermediaries. They stood between the colonial government and the Chinese population. Businesses made this role visible every day. Now we leave the businesses street and go to the place of worship and local leadership. Man Mo Temple was built in 1847 by merchants and literati. Not only was it a religious place, but it was also a place of local leadership. Temple committees raised money, took care of rituals, and sometimes helped settle disputes as an official court, because British governments adopted carrot policy, recognized traditional Chinese customs as a way to maintain colonial rule without direct intervention. In a vast growing city, this kind of committee gave the community a voice. When we look at donor boards and plaques, we see names of wealthy merchants. Their donations gave them respect and influence. The temple shows how Chinese elites used culture and ritual to support society. It also shows the in-between nature of Hong Kong. Here, local Chinese leadership acted next to colonial courts and offices. The temple connected tradition with modern urban life. It gave people identity and order when the city changed very fast. Furthermore, British government transferred the management of the Mo Temple and properties to Tunghua Hospital in order to enhance the system of indirect rule through Chinese elites and thus manage Chinese effectively. Talking about Tunghua Hospital, our next stop would be there, which is a charity led by Chinese elites. It shows the link between power and care.
Tunghua Hospital opened in 1870. It became the most important Chinese charitable institution in 19th century Hong Kong. It was led by Chinese elites like Wang Xing, who was the first Chinese justice of the peace. They raised funds, managed the hospital, and organized special service for the community. Also, in order to increase sanitation level, British government supported a lot. For instance, Governor MacDonald provided totally $115,000 to build it. One famous service was the Tonghua Coven Home, set up in 1875. It stored remains and helped send them back to family in China. For many migrants, it was a duty to return home after death. Tonghua helped to make that possible. During epidemic, Tonghua leaders has talked to colonial officials with health rules and community needs. Historian Elizabethson calls this the link between power and charity. By doing charity, these elites gain public trust and also political voice. They could speak for Chinese residents in official meetings. This is another example of Hong Kong as an in-between place, a Chinese-run institution working inside British colonial system. It shows how local leaders and the government meet and cooperate with each other. The government central school started in 1862. Later, the school had its campus on this site. It offered restaurant-style education to Chinese students. It taught English, science, and modern subjects. Many graduates became teachers, doctors, lawyers, and civil servants. For example, Southern Chow and Robert Coldwell graduated from here and became powerful Chinese elite. Education helped form a kind of Chinese elite in Hong Kong. In 1887, the Hong Kong College of Medicine for Chinese also opened. One student was Sun Yat-sen. He later became a key figure in China's history. Schools and colleges here gave Chinese students skills and a wider outlook. They learned to move between Chinese culture and Western knowledge. By the 1890s, Hong Kong also had reformist society and newspapers in this area. Local entrepreneurs and intellectuals supported them. They discussed science, politics, and change in China. The city was open enough to study and punish. It was close enough to China to matter. This adds another layer to our story. Elites were not only merchants, they were also students, writers, doctors, and organizers. Our field trip shows a clear picture. In the 19th century, Chinese elites helped build Hong Kong. They were bookers in business. They were leaders in temples. They were directors in charities. They also pushed the education and new ideas. Together, they made Hong Kong an in-between city. This project helped us understand that Hong Kong was not only a British colony, it was also a Chinese city, shaped by local leaders and networks. Our findings agree with John Carroll's view that Chinese elites were intermediaries. We also support Elizabethson's ideas that charity and power were linked. By walking these streets, we at a spatial angle. We see how close these roads are. Business, temple, hospital, and school all within minutes. To make this video, we used field notes, museum panels, Hong Kong memory, and books by Carol Sin and other historians. We show how food sources in the end credits. Thank you for watching. We hope this short film gives you a new way to see Hong Kong's 19th century.